I've been we run in some tiny similar circles with the Giants, and of course me in Sacramento, and I'd been trying to get up the courage to ask them to get a hold of you. And one of the things that actually put you back in my head, two things. Number one, my son is 11 and a little leaguer, and we had kind of a big moment where he's gotten into baseball cards, and my old Will Clark cards and his cards just merged into his collection, and telling stories and telling him, generational baseball, that type of thing is so special. But then the other thing was Amy Gutierrez put out a video of you swinging in your garage, still the same sweet swing, but I couldn't help but notice the white car in the background. That car looks like a gamer, Will.
Well, I've the Giants had asked if I had a video of me swinging or anything like that, and I had just done a lesson a few days earlier for a young man that wanted to make some adjustments in his swing, and so with the situation going on right now, I sent it to him, in a video form, and then I sent it to Amy, and Amy posted it, and everybody and their grandma commented on it. It's been pretty neat to follow, but that car right there was my mother-in-law's car, and when she passed, she willed it to my son, and so my son basically uses that to go back and forth to work.
Now, last time, if I remember, I apologize. I want to say son was a senior. I read an article about a double he hit and how proud you were and how he was clapping at second base. So I assume family's great. Everything's good on that end?
You know what? I appreciate you asking. Yes, it is. We've, like I said, been very cognizant as to what's going on. And, he's doing extremely well. He is now 24 years old.
Oof.
And, so he works at a local grocery store. And so, needless to say, with all the craziness happening, we've been trying to make sure that he stays safe and everything that's going on with him, too, as well.
Will Clark with us. Will, I also remember seeing video. I think you were with either Kruk and Kipe or Murph and Mack. You were at a charity golf tournament, and I just remember watching your golf swing. Now, I didn't see where the ball went, but I watched the golf swing, and it looked like Will Clark swinging a golf club, and that's going to make sense to people who grew up watching you. Do you find, do you play golf that often, and do you find some similarities between swinging a bat and swinging a club?
You know what? I actually do find a lot of similarities. I mean, there's a lot of the same things that you do in baseball you do in golf. And, I don't play a whole lot. I play in a lot of charity events, to help, raise awareness for things. But as far as, going out there and playing, every day and having a Sunday, guys around and stuff like that. No, I do not do that. And, the one thing about golf, and if you watch that clip, I don't really take a lot of time. I get up there and whack it. And, everybody's like, why? And I said, well, there's two reasons. I said, first off, the ball's sitting still. I said, and so that's a big advantage. And that's the first part. And then the second part is, you want to hit it before it starts moving, because I've been there when it's moving and it's no fun sometimes.
Before we get to a little bit of reminiscing, I got to tell you, I first visited, now you went to Jesuit High. You know all there is to know about that part of Louisiana. I first visited New Orleans about 5 years ago, and I think I've been back there 10 times since. I was just there in February. Wouldn't miss a chance to hit there. We were on our way out to Florida. I've done the muffaletta sandwich. I've done the pralines. I've hit Gumbo Shop. I've tried, but I still am a tourist. I've hit the Commander's Palace, Garden District, blah, blah, blah. If there was one or two places you would recommend to go get something to eat that might be off the beaten path, any pop into your head?
You talking about down in New Orleans?
Yes, sir. Yeah, or in the surrounding area. I believe you're somewhere between New Orleans and Baton Rouge, but whenever I'm down there, I'm always looking for new places to eat.
Yeah, the one place that I keep going back to is, believe it or not, because I like to have a nice steak every now and then, is Ruth's Chris. they're a nationwide chain, but they started down there in New Orleans. And I actually knew Miss Ruth herself. And the one thing that's really good about them is their product is so consistent.
Now, I got to ask you, and a lot of these, and I know you get this, a lot of these are questions from me growing up and being an unabashed Will Clark fan. Still the only jerseys I'll wear out, my home and away Will jersey with the white and the gray on the road. Well, let me start with this, Will. I wonder if you've ever been able to put your finger on it, and I know you're a humble dude, so maybe this is a tough question. All respect to your career, and no one respects it more than me, but you think of Barry Bonds or Mickey Mantle or Michael Jordan and the effect they have on some fans. You have to be aware that there's a large group of people like myself that consider their golden years, their hero was you. And have you ever been able to figure out, put your finger on why people like me, why so many fans just absolutely freak out when the name Will Clark is brought up?
That's actually a pretty good question. Yes, I see it quite a bit. I'm around the ballpark, all the time in the suite levels, and I see the reactions and stuff like that. But the second part of your question is, myself and Robbie Thompson, Matt Williams, guys like that, we came along at a very, very important time in the Giants organization and Giants history. They had been floundering around since, in the 60s and really hadn't won. Had some talent, but just couldn't put it together. And then, Robbie and I came on in 86 and 85. The team had their first 100-loss season ever. And, they wanted to completely change the dynamic and the way people thought about baseball in San Francisco. And, myself, I was one of those kind of guys. I still am. I absolutely hate to lose. Everything with me is a competition. I love it. I love the challenge. That's why, I'll sneak in the garage and swing a few times. I absolutely love it. And if you did not want to win and you did not want to compete, I didn't want you on my team. And that was the kind of mentality that Al Rosen and Roger Craig wanted. And it just so happened that myself and Robbie Thompson, we kind of epitomized that.
Well, it's a perfect segue because this is really going to hit home with a lot of old school Giants fans. I was, 9-10 years old. The Chili Davis, God bless him, in those 100 loss seasons, and then Roger Craig comes in, hum baby. You, Robbie, I can still go through the lineup, Bob Brenly, Jose Uribe, that whole gang, and that was before Don Robinson and Rick Russell and the rest of the guys joined up, Scotty Garrelts. But I remember, so much, and we'll get to that first at bat in a second. I know you've been asked that question a trillion times, but I looked it up, and I feel ashamed for not having looked it up in a while. Roger Craig is 90 years old. He's still kicking. He's still out there. And that 2 years after a 100-loss season, you guys won the 1987 NL West. How much of it was Roger, I'm sure, but then how much of it I always felt you guys just didn't know any better. You didn't care about the history. You didn't know any better. You just want to go out there and kick ass.
I agree with you there. I was into baseball history, and I still am. I know the history of the game and the players that came before me and what they stood for, et cetera, et cetera. But I was not one of those kind of guys that look back. I look forward. And it's like, all right, look, we're here and let's make the most of it. And at the same time, I'm a rookie, so I'm trying to feel my way around. But like I told you before, I had never been on a losing team in my life, and I wasn't about to start now. And, I was not afraid to speak my mind. I spoke my mind a lot. And I got put in my place a lot by, the veterans. But, they also at the same time pretty much realized that, hey, look, this guy's coming to the ballpark every day ready to kick somebody's butt. And, hey, let's get on board with him. He's setting the tone here.
Will Clark with us. You've been asked a trillion times about the Nolan Ryan at-bat, center field, Astrodome. What I thought was very hilarious, I heard Mike Krukow talking about it a couple years ago, and he said the entire, first pitch, curveball, you took it, asked the catcher what's up. He said, just just trying to mix it up. Second pitch over the center field fence. Mike Krukow said, naturally for rookies, you get the silent treatment. So that's the first and only time he remembers ever having a natural silent treatment because they didn't know what the hell was going on and they didn't know what the hell they saw. And then you said something. He said you got in the dugout and you had your high-pitched scream on. You said, all right, boys, let's get some more. Come on. Did you have any clue at that time? Did you even know what you did?
Oh, yeah. I definitely knew what I did. It was kind of funny, after, coming in after hitting the homer and all that, sitting on the bench and, just like a little calm came over me. I don't know why, I just had a few deep breaths and had calmed down. And you had mentioned Chili Davis. He was sitting to my left. And, I looked at him. I said, Chili, he's going to drill me next time up. He goes, oh, hell yeah. And Nolan was in his wind-up the next at bat, and I was kind of halfway on the way down to the ground when the pitch came buzzing by me.
Yeah, you knew
so,
it.
That was back in those days. That was what it was. I mean, it was a mutual respect. Hey, look, Ricky, you got me, but I'm still a big dog up here, and here, get out the way of this one.
I'll never forget the 10,000th home run in Giants history was hit by Ernest Riles. The 10,001st home run was hit by our very own Will Clark, joining us right now. These are like dumb little kid questions. I always, I'll never get a chance to ask again. But Will, I went out and bought a set of 1984 Olympic cards. Mark McGuire and a ton of other guys were on there. The whole reason I went to buy it was because I was looking for a Will Clark card. I open up the set. I look. There's no Will Clark card. I've never known the reason. Was there a reason why you weren't included in that 84 Olympic set?
Because I was a sophomore and they had to pay royalties to the players, and since I was still technically in college and an athlete, I could not receive compensation, so that's why I was not on there.
Makes sense. Okay, that's a question solved. I've had for about 30 years. So
there you go.
As we roll,
hey, look, sometimes you ain't gonna figure it out unless you ask the question. So I like that. That was a good question. Nice job.
I appreciate that. Will Clark with us. Hey, I had a opportunity through a charity thing. I played golf in a foursome about 3 years ago with Ozzie Smith and three of my buddies. And Ozzie was riding in my cart. And it was super nice guy, very polite. But Ozzie was also, by about the 15th hole, I realized this is a cool dude. I want to ask him a question. I'm comfortable enough to ask him. So finally, we're waiting for a group to clear ahead of us. And I say, Ozzie, you're the nicest guy. Like, I've played in these tournaments before, and you really, you care. You're not just here to pass time. I got to ask you. And he goes, go ahead. I said, I grew up despising you, Ozzie. I got to be honest, man. I'm a Giants fan. And he goes, uh-oh, here we go. And he knew where I was going. I said, listen, I'm a Will Clark guy, and I will never forget. Will Clark slides into second, takes out Jose Oquendo. He can't turn the play. Oquendo slaps him in the head. Will gets up, starts going at it. I said, that's fine. That's baseball. I said, Ozzie, you come in out of nowhere, and you start rabbit punching my guy from behind before Candy Maldonado comes in and drops a linebacker splat on you. I said, Ozzie, what the hell was going through your head? Now, Will, he said to me, I think if Will was here right now, he'd smile and he'd say that wasn't about that play. There was a lot of buildup. There was a lot of back and forth going at it. We absolutely couldn't stand each other, and it just spilled onto the field, and we all lost our minds. Now, that didn't make me forgive him, but I've always wanted to ask you since I talked to Ozzie, did he get it right? Did he have a point there?
You know what? He kind of got it right, but he also kind of missed the point a little bit. That whole fight, believe it or not, stemmed from the day before. Back in those days, if you stole a base, it was considered a stolen base. It wasn't none of this, conceding and all that sort of stuff. And we were losing to the Cardinals like 7-0 in like the 8th inning, and Vince Coleman was on first base, and we played behind him, which is, kind of gentleman rules in baseball. And he stole second, and he stole third, and so Matt Williams and I in no uncertain terms, were reading him the riot act. And so we basically told him he was going to get drilled. And the next day, I forget who the pitcher was, but he did not hit Vince Coleman. And so now the tables have turned. Now it's in I think it's the 7th inning, I guess. And I'm on first base, and we're winning now. We're winning like 5-0. And I said, you know what? If I get a chance, I'm going to go in there and get somebody. And, I'll get even with my teammates for everything else that went on the day before. And sure enough, Candy hits the ground ball, and Ozzie flips it. And the rule back then was, and, it's just the way it was in those days, if you could touch second base, you were completely legal. And I could definitely touch second base. I will admit I went a little out of my way to go get him.
Sure.
But it was perfectly legal, and then I was gonna get some payback from the day before, and that's the way it is.
So that being said, that's baseball. And if Jose wanted to mix it up with you, I don't have a problem with that. That's baseball too. But am I on the right side that in a situation like that, you don't come in and start rabbit punching the guy from behind, or am I wrong?
Totally agree with you.
Okay.
Totally agree with you. And if I had to say anything to Ozzie to his face, that's what I would say as well. I'd be like, hey, dude, I would so much rather you stand right smack in front of me and hit me right between the eyes than run around behind my back and try to rabbit punch me.
As we keep reminiscing with Will Clark, so kind to join us today. Again, another subject you've had. I'm trying to avoid asking you the stuff you've been asked a billion times, so we'll go.
Go ahead. Go ahead. That's the great part about these interviews. I mean, it's like when you're going to get a chance to ask it again, you never know. So fire away.
It's a great point. The Cubs series, the Maddox Slam, the what was one of the most important at bats I think in baseball history when you think about it, because it taught so many catchers and pitchers to cover their mouths. Now, again, if people pay attention, they know you read the high and inside fastball out of Greg's mouth, and Greg's not a guy to make a lot of mistakes. My thing I always wondered was, is that something you'd done your whole life? Is that something you'd known about, or was that just the right place, right time? Yeah, no, it was just right place, right time.
One thing that I tried to do as much as possible was pay attention. Because some of my coaches in the past have told me, hey, look, you can pick up on what a guy's tendency is, stuff like that. A perfect example would be, right now, if a new pitcher comes in, you'll see everybody walk over to, the dugout and go, hey, what's this guy got? Well, first off, you ought to know what he's got because you faced him before. That's first off. Second off, if you stand in the on-deck circle and you pay attention and he bounces like 4 breaking balls in a row, well, he's not going to throw a breaking ball for a strike. So, these are the kind of things that you do, as ball player, just paying attention. And, it just so happened that Maddox was out on the mound. He was talking to Don Zimmer. He was in a jam, bases loaded, 2 outs, and he had thrown me away the first 2 at-bats. He had not come in on me. And we had 2 other lefties, Brett Butler and Pat Sheridan, that were in the lineup, and he had been pounding them in. So, here we go again with the common sense type stuff. It has to be, he's going to be coming in sooner or later. And, I'm sitting there watching, and he goes fastball in, just like that. I mean, he said it plain as day. And Kevin Mitchell and I are in the on-deck circle, and I told Kevin, I said, did you see that? He goes, what? And I go, he just said fastball in. And he says, well, what you going to do? I said, well, I'm going to look fastball in. And it just so happened it was first pitch. And, when you hit it and you get a hold of one like that, you're like, uh-oh, I got him there. And that's just kind of what happened.
Any other universe, we look back on that series and look at how insane, out of his mind Mark Grace was in that series, and he was insane, and he was out of his mind, but he didn't bat 650. I'm always curious, number one, what planet were you on during that series? And number two, were you looking at Mark? Were you looking at Mark as kind of a back and forth, the 2 first basemen, or were you just focused on Will Clark?
Well, put it this way, I mean, I was on first base a lot in that series, and he was on first base a lot in that series, and so we were having some good exchanges. And it's just it doesn't happen too often where you come up to home plate and you're locked in, and you've been locked in for a while. But it just so happened that Mark and I were both locked in at the same time on a humongous stage with all the lights being as bright as they can be, and we're out there doing our thing. And both of us got some pitches to hit, didn't miss them, and found the green grass, and had a phenomenal series.
And a 14-year-old me watches the Giants advance to the World Series, crosstown A's. You're not an excuse guy. Again, a guy growing up obsessed with you knows that, and I'm not going to ask you to make excuses. But if I remember correctly, you were sick that series. I think you had tonsillitis, if I remember right. You weren't feeling too well. And obviously, beyond all of that, there was an even bigger distraction here locally with the earthquake. I know the A's were great, and I don't want to take anything away from them, but were you guys having trouble locking in that series when you look back decades later?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Like you said, I'm not an excuse guy. I am one of those kind of guys that I call and we talked about it before. I call a spade a spade.
Yep.
And I mean the A's had a phenomenal team, and they pretty much proved it. And look, the earthquake came and it really, really put a damper on things. But, if you look back on it too, I mean, they were pretty good. And, just the way it plays out. And, when we did come back, the World Series had definitely lost some of its luster, but they were also very, very deserving of, being world champs too.